Welcome back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinnie Eastwood Show. We're broadcasting live 5 days a week on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. At the moment, it's a bit weird with the time zone change thingies because New Zealand's changed time zone, but I don't think Australia has. So if you're in New Zealand, it's 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. Until further notice, because when the US switches over to daylight savings, and I don't know when that is, we will be midday till 2 p.m. New Zealand local time daily. So that's just a little bit of info for you. My very special guest and connoisseur of shrooms, as it were, in a way. Jan Irvin from Gnostic Media.
Well, you wouldn't know that from all of the attacks against me lately that I've ever consumed them.
Well, I would say that when it's in World War II, I believe there's a quote. You're familiar with the Lancaster bombers that took off from Britain and went bombing missions down in Germany, and they had a saying. When flak artillery is firing at you, it explodes all around you in these black puffs of smoke. And the saying was, if you're copping the flak, you're over the target.
Yeah, no kidding, huh? To say the least. And, the flak has been, they've been hitting me full on for the last month. There were some minor attacks when I put out my Wasson article on May 13, but the real attack started when I began to expose Terence McKenna, and I used to be a huge fan of Terence McKenna, and in fact, from 2001 to 2004, I put out on the internet about 70 hours worth of the Terence McKenna archives that are available out there today. And so, like I was saying earlier, just following the path of research, and I started fact-checking things and looking into his background and into his connections and into some of the things that he was promoting. And that led me into researching Aldous Huxley's background and all this stuff. But, the Huxley family, Aldous's grandfather, Sir Thomas Henry Huxley, actually was called Charles Darwin's bulldog. And they worked together, and they were close friends. And in fact, Aldous Huxley started a club called the X Club. And X is, biblical for the perfect man. And in Ezekiel, we see that X is put upon the men who are to be saved, and everyone else without the X is to be exterminated. So here we have Thomas Henry Huxley starting this X Club to promote Darwin's theories. And what he did was he and 8 professors at major universities formed this X Club, and then they dispensated Darwin's theories from there. And the obviously, as it points to Ezekiel, the ultimate agenda behind it was promoting eugenics. And let me just pull up the quote here from Ezekiel, and it's Ezekiel 9:6. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. Then they began at the ancient men which were before the house. And so, and as I mentioned in the article, that's the most updated version. The irony is twofold, that Huxley and Darwin are using a biblical reference for the club in which they promote Darwin's theories, and two, their plan for eugenics is laid bare. And, and then what happens is it skips a generation, and then you have Aldous Huxley and Julian Huxley pick it up from there. Julian Huxley founds UNESCO. He writes like 11 books on eugenics, humanism, transhumanism, all of this stuff actually dispensated through Aldous Huxley's books like Brave New World and Island and this stuff. And then Aldous Huxley helps found the Esalen Institute up in Northern California. And then from there, all of this stuff is dispensated out into the public. The using psychedelics or entheogens for enlightenment, for evolution. Terence McKenna, who worked at Esalen, and McKenna admits all of his ties to the Huxley family. We have Terence McKenna talks like techno-pagans at History's End, which is all about transhumanism. Of course, Julian Huxley was the first to ever publish on transhumanism. And then Julian Huxley also published on humanism and feminism and all of this other stuff. And for those of you out there who still believe in feminism, I recommend searching YouTube and watching everything from this woman, Karen, Girl Writes What. And I've also had her on my podcast recently, but she exposes the entire agenda behind the feminist movement to destroy the family unit, to cause more us and them mentality between men and women. And she exposes how, the so-called patriarchal system that the feminists sell is actually a complete misrepresentation of history. But she's got many dozens of videos on YouTube as well that expose a lot of this stuff, and it's very well researched. But, so McKenna was out there selling this stuff. And in fact, here's a quote from Terence McKenna from his talk in Maui in 1994, speaking the unspeakable. And, and the whole quote is up there, but I'll just read a couple of the snippets out of it. And a lot of people think that they support this idea, but I recommend you search and watch Karen of Girl Writes What before you thoughtlessly buy into what Terence is saying here. So this is the key points excerpted out of the, otherwise it would be a couple of minutes to read the whole thing for you, but it's up on my website for all to read there. He says, "The mushroom said," pause, "but since you brought it up, I would be very interested in seeing a set of social policies, tax incentives, medical policies, insurance policies put in place to limit male birth. This is the way to feminize the human race. I am a feminist. As a humanist, I advocate a reduction in male birth." Terence McKenna. And like I said, if you go into Julian Huxley's background, who was promoting humanism and founded transhumanism and was promoting all of these ideas, and you see Aldous Huxley promoting all of these ideas of, through Brave New World and stuff, controlling the population through drugs, and this idea of enlightenment through drugs. Well, you see, this is exactly the larger agenda that McKenna is selling, whether or not he is directly aware of it.
Well, that's how the system works so well, is having
right.
unwitting dupes and patsies who think
exactly.
they're smart.
And you dress up whatever you're selling in 70 or 80 or 90% truth, and you hide 10% BS in there, and you don't show people how to critical think, how to ask who, what, where, when, why, and how, and filter out the logical fallacies. You don't explain to them, hey, this is an ad hominem attack. Vincent, you're a New Zealander. You're a Kiwi. Anything that you say is completely BS. I can't believe anything out of your mouth. That's an ad hominem attack. They don't say...
But it's true, though.
Well, it is true, but that doesn't bear anything on the work that you put forward, right? I mean, you could be a homosexual or a Republican or a Whig party or whatever the heck, and that bears nothing on the particular information that you're presenting at any given time. You have to go point by point each time and check the information on its own merit. And so essentially what these elitists have done is, one of the key ways that the Trivium is used for mind control is just to switch the order of it. All they do is they get people to put the why before who, what, where, when. So let's say you're a computer, right? A computer has input, processing, and output. So all they're doing is they're getting people to put their processing before their input. Well, if you're putting processing first, what are you processing?
It's garbage in, garbage out, like a climate change
model. There's nothing there, so then you have to fill it in and you make it up, right? Or you appeal to some authority.
Have you noticed?
That's exactly how. Yes, that is the key sickness in our society, is just tricking people to put the why before who, what, where, and when. That is how the whole damned operation works, folks. Just switch the order. Whenever information comes in, ask who, what, where, when, before you determine why, and explain how to someone else. If you can do that, if you can go who, what, where, when, and then go out and check that information, like, if you hear something from some authority, if you spend 10 minutes checking it, it could save you a lifetime of false beliefs.
Most of us have already lived half a lifetime of false belief and are just now
Indeed.
waking up. It's a trauma to go through.
Well, sure, and this is the trick, is the whole authority thing, the whole appeal to authority, the ad verecundium fallacy, that is government. Okay, so once you begin to study logic in the Trivium, and people say, well, logic doesn't work. Well, the Trivium is not just logic. Again, it's grammar, logic, and rhetoric. It acts as sort of like a corkscrew so that when any new information comes in, you have a systematic way to go back and check it with previous information that's come in through your five senses. And so, of course, what they've also done is they've, created this whole, from Immanuel Kant and David Hume forward into influencing quantum physics. They sell this entire idea that you can't really find any truth from your five senses. And you have to ask yourself, who does that benefit?
Look at it. Who does it benefit? Well, it benefits all the people that are trying to pull the wool over your eyes and stab you and then roast you on a rotating split.
Hey, Bono, who benefits?
Okay, look at it this way, ladies and gentlemen. If you got a whole bunch of cows and things like that, you don't run after them and yell and scream and go, "Ah!" No. You just lead them quietly into the slaughterhouse. You listen to the Vinnie Eastwood Show on American Freedom Radio.
When we come back, I'll read you something from Huxley.
Yeah. Well, Huxley is a must, isn't it? We'll be right back in just a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you go changing. Jan Irvin, GnosticMedia.com. See you in a few seconds. Do you realize every day we are being put under constant stress from wireless radiation? What's worse is that you don't even know that it's happening. It puts as much stress on our body as if we had a constant viral infection, draining our energy and sapping our strength, or just making us irritable and fatigued. These wireless fields are being emitted from computers, microwaves, mobile phones, power lines, and any electrical appliance. Now there is a solution. A group of research engineers in New Zealand have come up with an active shielding device that shields you from wireless radiation at a cellular level. Blue Shield comes in 3 models: a household, portable, and USB that plugs into any computer. The great thing about Blue Shield is it is very affordable and guaranteed to last. A one-off purchase will see you being protected for years to come. Visit AmericanFreedomRadio.com and click on the Blue Shield banner. Blue Shield, brought to you by the VinnieEastwoodShow.com.
No matter where you live, globalism affects you. Did you know that the Vinnie Eastwood Show has more subscribers than New Zealand Herald TV and is New Zealand's most popular YouTube news channel, where warm-hearted humour and a list of awesome guests talk about crucial issues which the mainstream media ignore? A show where you, the listener, can phone up with questions, comments and suggestions of guests. Vinnie is building a hub to connect truthers with raw information they need to become active. He can help you gain further skills such as website building, producing audio and video, and creating revenue streams in your own multimedia environment. Because Vinnie supports such a wide range of people in the truth movement, he is not government or corporate backed and relies entirely on your donations. Give now, give generously, or subscribe for $10 a month for access to ad-free video archives. Just visit thevinnieeastwoodshow.com and click donate.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the fastest 2 hours in talk radio. It is the Vinnie Eastwood Show, broadcasting live on AmericanFreedomRadio.com, 5 till 7 Central, 5 days a week. My very special and immaculately polished guest, Jan Irvin, joins us now for the second hour. Jan, welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
Have you been enjoying yourself so far?
Oh, I'm doing my best considering my conditions and trying. There for a minute, I felt like I was going back into a fever, but I'm doing all right now.
It seems we're all holding back and trying to make good of a bad condition, aren't we?
Yeah, sure. On several levels right now.
And this is something I've noticed. I was listening to the ad over the break about the pseudo-capitalists of Wall Street and the military-industrial complex cheering on the printing of the currency, but that the number of people who care is growing exponentially. And I don't know if you've ever visited Alexa.com, have you, Jan?
I don't recall.
It's the global kind of internet ranking system, so you can go in and put any website.
Oh, yes. Okay, Alexis, yes, I just, your Kiwi accent there for a second. Or Alexia.
My bad.
I'm on it now, looking at my own website. How's that?
And what I find is you can start comparing yourself to other alternative right media or other alternative left media, and you'll find that you're beating them out every single time. I've discovered this with many truther websites, and my friends' websites as well are still beating out the controlled alternative media.
They're still beating out what?
They're still beating out the controlled right and controlled left, quote-unquote, alternative media.
Yeah. The alternative sources are online. What about the mainstream, though? That's what we've got to hit.
That's true. And I think that the mainstream media outlets are small in number and large in audience, whereas we are large in number and moderate in audience. So I think if you think of all the alternative websites and you put them together, I would say we are beating the freaking pants off them hands down.
Interesting. You're talking about Truth Frequency, or American Freedom Radio, or what?
No, I'm talking about American Freedom Radio, RBN, GCN, Coast to Coast, and you there's a wide spectrum of alternative media outlets, radio stations, and things like that.
Yeah, and I would say
some
of those are heavily involved in the disinformation as well.
This is true, but even the disinformation that's put out by the Truth Movement is still much better information than you get out of the mainstream media.
Yeah, I will agree with that, but there's still enough misleading information to keep people, focused on the wrong target. Like, for instance, the Wall Street protesters and these guys that have been out there. If they studied Clint Richardson's research on the CAFR, comprehensive annual financial reports, and how that stuff works, and it's not just here in the U.S., it's all over the world. If they studied that information, they would be protesting every city hall in America and not Wall Street. Wall Street is at the other end of it, not at the cause of the issue, which is that our city, county, state governments own 85% of Wall Street.
I feel that the whole free market ideology can work in things that don't involve markets. For example, the trafficking of a commodity like information, and people are competing against each other, and naturally those who are providing the best information regularly with high quality are the ones who in general wind up getting the hits. So the system works. The difficulty is we have people who, as you've so poignantly stated, go directly to the why and do not ask first the what, where,
Sure.
how.
Well, they'll see a conspiracy and they'll be, oh, well, that's a conspiracy theory. And, they'll use an appeal to ridicule. That's wrong because, and that's the only answer. And it's completely the entire brainwashing through the compulsory education system to get people to react like that to information, because, it's easier for them to react like that than it is for them to admit that they might have been fooled, which is unfortunate because, it takes a lot of, from people to be honest with themselves and own up to this sort of thing. And some people's egos are just so huge to admit that they could have ever been fooled. But guess what, folks? Every single one of us has been fooled at one time or another, and not just on one level, but on many. And government isn't just one. Religion isn't just one. I mean, these are all stacked up on top of each other. And when you begin to apply the trivium and the logical fallacies, just the basics of the trivium that we should have learned by 8th grade reveal how the entire system works. And that's why they got rid of the trivium in the early 1900s, and they brought in the compulsory government education, because the trivium stood in between world government and their agenda and our autonomy. I mean, they're on the opposite side. So as long as we have the Trivium, we remain autonomous. And people will say, well, what about the environment and all of these things that we need to take care of? Well, if you look at it, it's the elites and the, who have brought us, planned obsolescence and Edward Bernays and Madison Avenue and all of their marketing and selling of these ideas. It's the elites, the very people that we've been investigating on this stuff, who have caused these very problems that they then turn and blame us for. The banning of industrial hemp, for instance, in most countries, which is completely absurd. And then, I think it was New Zealand that was supposed to have a hemp fuel company in full production like 2 years ago, and I think that was stamped out. And they had actually gotten permission to run from the New Zealand government and had done all of the studies and everything and showed the yields per hectare were going to be much higher than originally suspected, and they were ready to go, and then all of a sudden, nothing. So obviously somebody came along and shut that down, because when you have things like, industrial hemp and things that promote autonomy and not, don't keep us tied to this, corporate government tit, well, they immediately stamp it out.
Well, I was thinking about this yesterday. I love getting in front of protests because I got a 100-watt megaphone now given to me by another protester. And I wanted to ask them this question. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, do any of you think that you're currently under mind control? Nobody will raise their hand. And I go, okay, I'll ask you another question. Is anyone here currently under the rule of their government? Yeah, everybody raised their hand. Okay. Now, who knows what the word government means? Govern meaning control, and ment meaning mind.
Right. And when I mention this, people constantly come up and will say, well, ment is just the suffix like cement or something like this, but from Middle English forward, and you can find it in other languages as well, the mente from Latin meaning mind. And it's ironic because that is when you use that description, it fits exactly what government is for, right? And then when you change that the ment or mente at the end to a suffix, suddenly the word doesn't describe what it is and it actually hides it. So to me that's a bunch of sophist trickery, because when the word perfectly describes what government is, and when you realize, like I said, study Larkin Rose's research, and that's LARKEN, Rose.com. And when you research his work, he's the leading thinker out there exposing how government is a religion. He's got a very good book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, another book that is a novel called The Iron Web. He's got one or two other books as well. But, this is the information that they don't want you to know how to think and how it, the Trivium doesn't tell you what to think. It tells you how to think and how to check information and how to spot predators, people that are trying to take advantage of you and manipulate you. And so that, coupled with, all of these other concepts, understanding that government is a religion, and understanding that it's this belief in this religion of government that continually empowers the elite. And as soon as you stop believing in that religion, you completely disempower them. It is your belief in their religion that empowers them. And so, folks, all you have to do is just turn off that belief. You sever that connection. They no longer have power over you, and the more and more people that wake up, guess what? One day they're going to be left completely powerless and exposed and vulnerable, and because they don't produce anything and they're just cancers on society, they're going to fall off and die. Drop from the vine. I should say they'll drop from the vine, or the branch will drop off the tree and it'll drop dead.
Truth is the ultimate way to prune off the dead wood.
Indeed, it is.
And I wanted to mention as well that this dynamic that we have here I remember I was at a public meeting once, and this aficionado of the government was trying to tell the crowd how cutting all their education spending was absolutely necessary because of the tough economic times, and the whole crowd wasn't having any of it, and he lost all his power because everything he said was drowned out by boos.
Well, the thing is too is that when you get in and study Clint Richardson and Walter Burrian's work, and you see how what the government does is they take your tax money and then they invest it in these massive funds all over the world. And they essentially siphon all of the money out of the wealthier countries into the poorer countries. But, for instance, the state of California, the governor was, we're $16 billion in debt, and we're just going to have to shut down all of these programs. And I've met Jerry Brown, and the guy is just a complete, oh, my goodness. But anyway, not to use an ad hominem against the guy, but woo. So anyway, it's if you, and I just lost my train of thought there. I apologize, but the entire idea though is Jerry Brown was hiding behind this $16 billion, and meanwhile, my friend Clint Richardson exposed that the government, in fact, had another, they were hiding $586 billion in these funds. So, and of course, these funds are all supposedly reserved for retirement. It could pay off the entire debt 35 times over. And they're cool. But, the thing is if all of these the tax money that's been hidden in these funds, all of this investment money was returned to the investment into the public, then you would never need taxes ever again for anything. And going back to the the voluntary society and how would all of this stuff get funded? Well, that's exactly how it would get funded, or one of the ways. And we would have corporatocracy as well, because obviously the corporation can only exist by belief in government. A corporation is a straw man. It's a belief in a false entity.
Yeah.
It's the fallacy of the straw man.
That's why they're so irresponsible, I think.
Sure. See, that's the whole idea, is by them creating this entity or this imaginary, none of the top people within the corporation need take responsibility for their actions, right? They have a buffer there to protect them, and so then they can go around and act like the psychopaths that they are, just like government. In government, you cannot.
If we could liken it to playing a game of Grand Theft Auto, when you've got this protective bubble of being in an imaginary world, and you can go out and kill all these people, and it means nothing.
Sure, and it's imaginary belief in the religion of government, right? It's these guys that put on this, their costumes, their badge, their funny little hats, their billy clubs, the parking meter, the woman at the courthouse, the judge that wears the black dress behind the Masonic counter and all of that, the Masonic bench, and he directs the flow of the currency between the banks and all of this kind of crap. It's just all of these double standard terms and fallacies of equivocation. An equivocation is when a word is used simultaneously to mean two different things, and unless you spot those two different meanings, they'll use it against you to manipulate you, right? So these are all different tactics that the government and corporate media use to control us. And just if you were so lazy and you just didn't want to study the Trivium, on the Trivium education website, there's a printout on one page where you can download a little pocket thing of the fallacies to carry around in your pocket, so that just pull this thing out and practice it for a minute every day. And if you do that for 2 weeks or a month, you'll have most of the fallacies memorized, or at least the key ones, and you'll be protected from most of the BS coming out at you. Now, people new ways to lie and trick and manipulate, but and there are probably more than 200 fallacies. But if you get a solid knowledge of the core 20, you'll be fairly well protected.
I think that's what we're really searching for. All of us in the truth movement are looking for either A1, an overall solution to this, or B2, a coping mechanism / methodology for living in this world.
Sure. Well, look a minute. What did you just say there? You said the truth movement. Okay.
Or for lack of a better term.
Hold on. Now, let's just review this and think about it, because what is the truth movement? If the truth movement has not gathered and incorporated a systematic method for removing fallacies. See, the word fallacy comes from the Latin fallare, to lie. And all of these different fallacies that they use against us are different ways to lie and control people. And if you don't know the fallacies, you have no way to filter them out of your own thoughts, right? And so this is actually key in not only spotting the lies coming at you, but also filtering the lies out of your own head, right? And so what is truth but the absence of lies or fallacies? So how does the truth movement become a real truth movement, this type of information?
I think that's a very poignant question, and I think we should probably attempt to answer that after the break, don't you think, Jan? Because it bears looking upon, because a lot of people think about it as like the 9/11 half-truth movement sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Not looking at the whole equation. We'll be right back.
And that's why fallacies are so important.
Indeed. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.